Hello and welcome to the Unifying Force, episode 72. I'm Kat, joined by Dave, Geo. It's been a while. How is everybody?
I am doing well, as I hope people have enjoyed kind of like our repeats while we've all been out and gallivanting around and doing things. But new content.
Yeah. We do have some new content. Yeah, I've been good. And we've been, you know, in the last couple of weeks, something's been coming along Disney Plus once a week on a Tuesday night/Wednesday morning, depending on where you are in the world or when you log on. And I think people have some thoughts about it, right?
I'm betting they do. What time does it air for you, Gio? What time does it come new?
So I think it does air at Wednesday at 2 a.m., which I think is this. So I think it simultaneously drops Pacific, East, and GMT the same time. And I think it's the same for Europe too. So they're only like an hour or two ahead. So I think it drops worldwide at the same time to avoid people having the kind of spoiler stuff and so on.
Well, I will start with I enjoy the fact that it's appointment television. I mean, it's slightly inconvenient for you that it's like 2 a.m., but at least here within the United States is the fact that as a virtual Cantina crew, we've been able to like start our happy hour on Zoom, go away, watch the episode, and then all kind of come back together and talk about it like in real time. It was like the old days when we would watch Friends or watch I think I did it with Lois and Clark, the New Adventures of Superman and some other shows, is experience those with other people. I think that's been a positive thing about this, and they've done that with the last couple of Disney Plus shows, and I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, I think appointment TV is a good thing to kind of bring back if it can be brought back, and it does help build that feeling of community again, which I think can be missing a lot of the time when your content is online and generally, the kind of VOD system that's become streaming content and all these different services. Everyone's competing, everyone's putting out as much as they can, pumping out these series. But content of the Acolyte aside, the idea of having an episode a week to look forward to gather around to watch, either physically or virtually, digitally, however we interface with each other nowadays, I think is an exciting thing that does kind of build up good feeling and goodwill, at least in the community aspect of it.
Yeah, it does. And it still allows for, there are people who still can wait and binge the whole thing when the whole season is done, though avoiding spoilers for like 8 weeks, I don't know how you do it. But it's like anything is that's your choice to view it that way, but still being able to even like, okay, I'm not going to catch it like on the Tuesday nights with everybody else, but I can still catch it at some point by Wednesday. So like Thursday, the water cooler talk in the office and whatever is like, it's participatory, and it's the thing that's going on. It's something that just didn't happen with shows that we're going to drop all 16 episodes of this season at once and just everybody's at a different place and here, there, and I don't know. So that's the format of it. So let's kind of we'll start at the beginning. We'll start with episodes 1 and 2, and we'll progress and kind of give our reviews and thoughts and things, and I'm sure we'll skip ahead and we'll get to some of the stuff from the finale right as we go into anything else because it's fresh on our minds. We're recording this the day after that aired, by the way, less than 24 hours after it dropped, and we've got some thoughts. Why don't you start with episodes 1 and 2 there, Kat?
So The first scene in the episode already tells you how bad the show is going to be right out of the gate. When in the very first scene, spoilers, they kill Carrie-Anne Moss's character.
Yes.
It was one of the big selling points of this series that they advertised. Now, I wasn't a fan of the idea that Leslie Headland says, "Oh, I just want her to play Trinity again," which is basically what they're trying to do. It's like, no, she already played Trinity. Let her be a different character. But it's like, okay, so you're anticipating this person's coming. You're a Jedi Master, built up, said to be. Yeah, they were saying, really talking about how talking up this character a lot and how badass she is. And she gets wasted by this girl doing kung fu with a little dagger, and it's like, okay, so we just got rid of a character people were actually excited to see in the very first scene. Not very good. But there's at least a mystery aspect to it. Like, okay, why'd you do it? And they immediately ruin this by revealing that there's twins involved. Because when the Jedi find the person they think is responsible, and she's like, "I didn't do it," it's like, well, why don't you play with the fact that maybe that we don't know, maybe she did, we don't know, maybe she's lying and she did do it. But no, let's just spoil right out of the gate that she has a twin, so she couldn't have done it. It's like, again, you just ruined another part of the mystery, which could have been intriguing and played with that dichotomy a bit more. And it's like, why? And then we meet another Jedi who's committed themselves to a trance because they feel guilty. It's like, okay, so you're adding a little bit of intrigue to whatever this is. But then when we get to our flashback episode, where we finally get to see like what's going on, because we see that the killer is affiliated with some stranger who is literally called the Stranger in the marketing. We don't really know who he is. And she has another buddy named Kamir, who, spoilers, is the Stranger. And it's like their master is telling them apparently, oh, you need to kill these Jedi without weapons. And there's like, so it's like she's out for revenge, but she's trying to satisfy these tests for whoever this mysterious stranger is. So it's like, okay, this is kind of interesting. We'll see where this goes. And the Jedi are very distrustful of Osha, who's the good twin, the innocent twin, I should say. We don't know why exactly they distrust her so much, why they're so convinced that she did this, because they're keeping this element of mystery. But then in the third episode, they have this huge flashback, which isn't really structured very well, that reveals basically in a nutshell that there's a whole new coven of witches, not tapped into the dark side like the Night Sisters are, who have these sort of exceptional abilities, but they're kind of doing their own thing peacefully on their planet. The Jedi barged in, and they even say, oh, the Republic forbids this. Like, but you're not in the Republic. You're outside your jurisdiction, so what does that matter? And they kind of go pussyfooting around, and they have some arguments, and then the two siblings, or the two twins, don't get along. One is kind of slightly, at first they made her seem almost kind of crazy or sociopathic, the way she's kind of torturing little animals or whatever, but it turns out that's not really what's going on. And it seems like Osha's motivation to want to leave with the Jedi and train with them is because she doesn't get along with her sister. And it's like, wait a minute. You clearly love Mother Anastasia. You don't want to leave her.
Yeah.
You're aware of the Jedi, but there's no real driving force for you to leave. So why? You saw how heartbroken she was to leave. It's like, well, then why are you going?
This is when some of the weirdness starts. Is there's a lot of things that are enjoyable in this series, but there's a lot of things that just make you question things. Is if they're outside the Republic and they're sheltered and they're in this enclave, this fortress, how on earth does Osha even know? Don't even get me started with naming a character after like a government organization for health and safety. Don't get me started. But it's like, how does she even know what Jedi are? Who told her? That doesn't seem like a story that the purple witches would tell you. The Dathomirian witches are the red witches. These are the purple witches. It's like, why? I don't know that. I don't understand there. Now, the first start of it is, again, the other questions, or it opens questions or opens possibilities. I thought the entire reason is, oh, I'm supposed to be killing a Jedi. I'm supposed to kill a Jedi without a weapon, whatever. I thought they were talking about the path of the open hand from the High Republic. I thought, oh, this is where we're going to go with that. Well, spoilers for the entire rest of the season, we still don't know if that's where they were going with that, or why, or what, or a question that is brought up and put there that we still don't know. And it snowballs from there.
What were your first thoughts on the first 3 episodes, Gio?
When the first 2 episodes dropped together, I thought, okay, this is a new time period for Star Wars. It's kind of been explored with a little High Republic stuff, but this is its own thing. So let's get something standalone and nice. It just kind of felt like a CW show from the beginning. Like I'm still confused about what age demographic this was targeted towards, because they're like huge changes of tone with really significant story elements that don't fit together at all cohesively. That becomes more of a problem, I think, once you've got the flashback season, the flashback episode, and going into the 4th and 5th episodes, because you get some extreme highs with some already pre-existent lows, and so the contrast is even more jarring, I think, as you continue with the episodes of the season. But I thought there was some promise, because I thought just some of the little like intangible background things seemed pretty cool. Like the creatures looked good. There were lots of new aliens. There was
and there were creatures in this one where that's been lacking in some other stuff lately.
Definitely, there was like a palpable, tangible aspect to the look of this that was missing from previous Disney Plus Star Wars shows. And so I thought, okay, maybe they're trying to create this physical environment, and okay, the main character, it's a twin thing. She's not really emoting anything beyond blank face for like 20 or 30-minute episodes, but her droid has character. Let's see what goes on with him. And when the personality of an inanimate object is more than the main protagonist, you're going to run into some problems. But I was still thinking, hey, this is just the first bit. Let's see where this goes. Let's try and keep an open mind. I think at that point, I didn't know how much had been spent on the show. It felt like they had invested in maybe trying to use some sets, shoot on location. And before researching it, I think it did feel like a higher quality than season 3 of The Mandalorian, the whole of Obi-Wan, most of the Book of Boba Fett. And I think that's probably because they didn't use the volume as much, the stagecraft technology. So it did feel more organic in that way. And I thought, okay, at least they're doing some of the filming classical aspects of making TV or film in like the traditional way. So this is good. This could lead somewhere. Saul seemed like an interesting character. I had no reason to like him at all, other than the name and face recognition from being the star of Squid Game. And that really shouldn't count. That shouldn't be a reason why I care about this character in this universe, because they've got to give me a reason to care. And as the season went on, it just felt like the characters that I did like are for reasons that aren't within the story and aren't within the framework of the show. So that's the only reason I might feel anything about them when their character experiences loss or is about to get stabbed by the new villain. The only reason that I have any connection to these characters is because I've consumed other content that doesn't relate to this project, and that is a huge shame. And I think it again comes down to script, story, character. Just there not being anything of like passable, acceptable quality in those regards. I think some of the better actors tried to make the most that they could out of the script.
Yeah,
and you do feel that. And I think there were some potentially really good performances that were again kneecapped by poor dialogue and no characterization. It's just some character would have been great. But I thought when the first 2 episodes dropped, we'd have that coming along. And then as soon as we got into week 3 and the entire... Because Disney Plus is quite cryptic, right? They drop the title and there's like a 1-line copy to summarize the episode that doesn't really spoil anything. And often they then go back and add a full paragraph once the season's over and people revisit it and so on. And I thought, oh, Destiny, okay, all right, cliche, but that's good. Let's see an episode that's about Destiny. What lies ahead for our characters? But it was a full flashback episode, and then I thought, this is a complete waste. There's only 8 episodes that we have of the story, and you're looking back at a set of circumstances that we know are nothing like what we're seeing, and kind of contradicts what we've been told, the little of it that we've been told. And so when that came along, I thought they're going to end up doing, I really hope they weren't going to do a symmetrical aspect of the season where there's another flashback episode to complete what we didn't see. And that is exactly what they did. And it was the one
which
thing
I would not have had a problem with if it had been a different episode. We saw like this much new content in that. It was like we just re-aired the other episode and you had to sit there and watch everything that you'd already seen for like 2 or 3 little tidbits that were different.
Yeah, it's like, and the other thing is, what was the point in omitting all of that in the first place? It's like they were trying to. They're throwing in. They're throwing in missing exposition to compensate for the fact that there's no intrigue in the main story.
Yeah.
But you could have just told us that at the beginning, and there already would have been some intrigue as to what's going on with Saul and why is he suddenly so connected. Like, there's no justification for why he feared for them just because Mother Anastasia was powerful. It's like, okay, so what? She's powerful. Why? Like, so is Yoda. You're not going to try and kill Yoda or save the younglings from Yoda, right? It's like there's nothing really there, and granted, Torben is the one who screws everything up by running back, but whatever. But they don't really give us that. It's like they split it into 2, and like you said, 8 episodes. We don't have time for that. And the other thing that's baffling is at the end of the second episode, okay, they know these 2 Jedi have been targeted successfully. Mm-hmm. We know exactly who's targeted next and where he is and where they're going. But Venestra's like, no, you need to come back to Coruscant so we can putz around and do things by the book. So they go back to Coruscant, putz around, while the assassin May teams up with her buddy Kamir, and they're already on Kofar, walking through the woods, going to Kanaka's house because they know where he lives. Yet inexplicably, the Jedi show up almost at the same time, but they were already over on Coruscant doing their own thing, hanging out for all this time. But they get there at the same. It's like, it reminds me of Commando when what's the name? Schwarzenegger takes a boat and the other guy takes an airplane, but they both get there at the same time. It's like,
well, and there's a lot of baffling little ridiculousness. The lack of respect to the fandom in labeling frickin' Coruscant. Okay, if you are watching Star Wars and you couldn't pick that out as frickin' Coruscant, and the only reason to do that, we'll do that for all the planets.
But there's some of them they didn't name.
But then, exactly, then you give it the unnamed planet, which anybody who's actually read Legends knows exactly what frickin' planet that is. Why don't you just tell us? But, so, is the lack of respect in that, the more questions that it answers, which is, call the Wookiee on the radio, hi, somebody's coming to kill you. Or here, we're going to introduce the new cute little tracker thing. Basil, just to give him a Funko Pop immediately. Why do you need a tracker? You have the Force. That is how the Force works.
Yes. And then here's the other thing is that, again, May was really hyped to kill the first 2 Jedi. But in the whole journey on Kofar through the jungle, she's complaining about how she has to kill Kanaka. It's like, wait a minute. You say that these 4 are the ones who are most responsible for whatever happened on the planet because they hadn't told us exactly what the Jedi did yet. But for some reason, she's suddenly complaining and upset about what she has to do. She knows at this point that Osha's alive. But then she finally, after putzing around with Kamir for a while, says, you know what, I'm going to give up. I'm not really part of this anymore. It's like, well, you've been hanging out with him for a while. Don't you realize this is more than revenge? There's something else at work here. But now I'm going to leave. And unlike Darth Vader, who's planning to betray the Emperor for years, like in Empire Strikes Back, the minute he finds out that Luke is his son, that's his goal for the rest of that movie, is kill Vader, or kill Palpatine. Same in Return of the Jedi. He tries to convince Luke to come back. He doesn't. Whereas May, on a dime, after talking to Kamir and realizing, well, since my sister's alive, I guess I'm just going to go back to the Jedi. It's like, you've killed 2 of them. they know this. They're going to arrest you. They are not going to. You have no information. The fact that you know nothing about Khmer means there's no information you can give them, which is useful to them, because you're the one who killed the 2 Jedi, not Khmer. It's like, what? But she's going to trust them to go back. So she goes back to Osha, sees that she's with the Jedi, which should come as no surprise since she knows that Osha's alive and with them. But she sees that and she changes her mind again and decides to go back to Khmer. Why? I don't know. She gets stopped by Osha. They have a conversation, like a heart-to-heart, and it doesn't work out. So May suddenly decides to get mad at the Jedi again and switch places to sneak aboard Saul's ship. Meanwhile, the stranger killed everybody.
Yeah.
And clueless as to why Yoda hasn't sensed any of this going on. I mean, he sensed Anakin's turmoil on Tatooine when his mother died in Attack of the Clones and Yoda was clear across the galaxy. Lucas says on record that the reason he sent Yoda to Kashyyyk in Revenge of the Sith is because he would have sensed what was going down on Coruscant, would have been able to intervene and stop it. But he couldn't sense, like, what was it, 7 or 8 Jedi all getting killed within the space of like 10 minutes? He couldn't sense Saul's inner turmoil 15 years earlier when he killed Mother Anastasia and all the devastation that happened in that episode. It's like, why is Yoda not clued into what's going on here? And like you said, why did they need a tracker?
I would.
I really wish they'd kept Yoda out of it.
It doesn't sense anything because it was said we're not supposed to be using Yoda in this. We're not going to include Yoda because we don't want this. This is every single time they say we want to get away from telling the Skywalker story. They go back to telling the Skywalker story.
Oh, wait till we get to the bombshell of the season. So, in terms of structure, the 4th episode has a very weird ending. So you find Kanaka dead.
They all have weird endings, though. Well, all the episodes are really weirdly. There's like a really jarring extra scene, and then it just cuts. Every episode kind of finishes like that.
They don't have any faith in the strength of the story or the characters to keep you coming back. They need to create these cliffhangers, and I saw that similar, to be fair, with an Apple TV show called Sugar this year with Colin Farrell, which I watched because I like Colin Farrell. But it was the same kind of thing. Episodes that don't really move the story forward, that end on these really cheap middle scene. Like middle of a scene where dialogue just stops and we cut to black for these half-hour episodes. And it's the same thing here. Now, I wasn't upset that they initially skipped the Wookiee fight. I was just upset that maybe Kanaka can shed some light on what's going on here because we're like halfway through the season now and they still haven't told us what the heck's going on. Oh, but he's dead already. So I don't really care about seeing the Wookiee fight anymore because he already told us he's not that much of a badass after all. And the episode literally ends with the stranger using the Force to knock all the Jedi back. It stops right in the middle of a scene. And it's like, if you want a cliffhanger with them sensing him coming, fine. But don't stop the episode literally in the midst of a lightsaber swing or something. It's just bad editing.
I think, is stopping that scene 37 seconds before he blows them all back, when he's just standing there. In scene. You're done.
It was actually a moment of horror, it felt. The way he descends behind
save the I'm so powerful and blow you back for the next episode.
And and the dialogue is just really clunky through a lot of that as well. And to be fair, there's no reason really to split the 4th and 5th episode into 2 episodes. It's like same thing with episode 3.
You're streaming. They can be any damn length you want.
Yeah, and there's no reason to split it because it's like it interrupts the flow of the show and interrupts the first half is just building up the momentum, building up to a peak. Well, but you ruin that by cutting off and making us wait to next week to get to the peak.
And here's the thing: why are you held to? Oh, that's the format. It has to be 8 episodes, and they have to. No, you're not. It's 8 episodes, but then you aired the first 2, so it's 7 weeks. You could adjust the links and make it fit the number.
Andor was 12 episodes.
Right. But you're not held to anything. Why are you imposing these weird little things on yourself?
And so at the end of this episode, the 5th one, we have May and Osha have now switched places. Basil can tell that May is the one who is on the ship with Saul, but for some reason he doesn't tell Saul initially, and eventually Saul figures it out, and it takes Saul way too long to figure that out. It's like, dude, Osha was you loved Osha more than, how do you not know this by now? It's like, there's something wrong here.
Well, meanwhile, and Basil rigging the ship to mess with her.
And that's in the final episode.
I loved it.
Yeah.
But then he just goes up and kicks her in the shins and runs away.
Yeah.
And then, meanwhile, Osha, since they've switched places, is found by Kamir, and he's smart enough to know who she is. That it's not May. And he gives a good explanation for why he's dropped May like a rock. He's like, no, May turns out to be just motivated by vengeance. She's not into me. It's like, well, why did it take you that long to figure that out? Number one. Number two, what makes you think Osha is going to warm up to you to the point that you feel safe taking her back to Korriban? Right, that is Korriban, right?
I thought, there was a name, I forget it.
Oh, I think it's if we're going by EU law
The
from
other
the
one
Plagueis novel, it's
Morbin?
It's Baldemnik.
Baldemnik.
which is-
Okay, that's right, Baldemnik. So you take her back to Baldemnik, and I thought it was a joke when the memes were coming around. It's a literal Sith thirst trap. He's like, oh, I might be what you call a Sith. I'm like, again, the writers, you're showing this to Star Wars fans. We know what Sith are.
Yeah.
You're on the 6th episode now, and you still haven't told us jack about this character. Why are you beating around the bush? He felt safe bringing her out here, and he's still not telling us anything. He's just using skinny dipping as like a seduction tool.
But
It's
again,
not telling
it's
us
like she was only motivated by vengeance. That's what Sith do.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
the whole point. Why did you drop her? Because she was only motivated by vengeance. It's like, good, do it.
She's a perfect tool for him, right? For him to get about his diabolical whatever. We don't know anything at that stage, but yeah, use her.
Yeah, and why does he trust Osha at this stage? Like, there's no real reason for him to be hanging out with her, but unless he already knows about the Virgins or whatever, or maybe.
Yeah,
meanwhile, Saul decides to finally tell May the truth about what happened, and that's where, like you said, we get a parallel episode, which is like 85% retread of what we've already seen and like 15% information. And again, it would have been great if they just told us all this in the 3rd episode. It would have helped create some more intrigue and mystery.
Well, here's the thing too, is why didn't you intercut? Why did it have to be entire flashback? Intercut some of the thing is, let's see, some of that is Saul telling his story, a la, Columbo telling Fred Savage, The Princess Bride. Some of that's this, but then the other part is Osha in the helmet, just her in the Force, remembering or coming back correct. You can do both of the points of view, and it's not just completely removed and retreading entirely. But no,
right, and it's like, and again, they still did. It's like, why did they split this up as flashbacks to begin with? They could have just told us that and helped create another layer of intrigue. Because because everything that we see in that flashback, there's stuff in there which Saul wouldn't know, but we're shown it anyway. And yet, when we get to the final episode, we confirm through dialogue that was him telling May the story.
See, that's why I'm saying it should have been parts of this, parts of that.
Right. So it's like, again, that's bad editing structure, bad storytelling, because it's like you set it up almost like he's telling the story, and it ended, and then episode 7 is a flashback, but doesn't really remind you that he's telling the story. It has all this shit now. So now we're still lost, and now the 8th episode, it's, oh my god, we can't.
Hold on. We kind of glossed over. There's yet another big, gigantic question in here, which is, okay, Kamir, the stranger, whatever, says to Saul, "You don't remember me." We are never told what the hell their relationship is, has. No idea.
That was one of the most intriguing moments in an otherwise very enjoyable episode, the second part of the day-night bit, because you had the great choreography, the duel. I think everyone loved that.
It was badass. Like the whoever is doing the fight choreography for that, really cool. Whoever is doing the stunt fighting for Jay. No, the Padawan who almost bests Jackie. The one who's doing the fight choreography for that, really cool. Yeah. Okay, is some of the emotions in there, like the fight with Saul is great. You're sitting there and you're going, do it, kill him. No, that's some good suspense. But still questions. questions that never, ever, ever get answered.
Well, you have to care about the characters to care about the duel, and
well, that's the kind of thing. I like the duel for the fun of the duel. Okay, it was, and I get some of the killing Carrie-Anne Moss in the first episode was they're trying to be all High Republic-y, which is everybody dies. That's the first thing you learn about the High Republic is everybody dies. And I'm not talking of old age or whatever. They will kill a character like that. But the difference is you've got 30 pages that made you care about that character before they kill him. You know, is they've built it up. They've given you the backstory. They've told you the whole thing. Snap, they're dead. What? Like literally that is, what's the first book? Light of the Jedi. That's the whole thing. You get, I care about it. Nope. Boom. Gone. And they did the thing. They referred to that very event during this. It's like, oh yeah, all of this was because of the hyperspace disaster. You're like, ooh, the thing. They said the thing. But just they keep going, and it's like,
oh, just wait till we hear what happens in the 8th episode. So in episode 8, May escapes. Saul gives chase. Basil, for some reason, sabotages the ship, which inadvertently causes a crash, which wrecks both of them. But in any case, they both end up on Brendok again.
Yeah.
Saul decides to turn the transponder back on because he figures he needs backup. Venestra is going to come try and save the day, round up the Jedi, but she's trying to be quiet about it because she's being hassled by a senator who's correctly saying that she's losing control of things, and this is not really going very well. Meanwhile, Osha...
Now, here's a question I have. Had we ever seen that senator before? Does that senator appear in anything? Would it not have been like somewhat more...
Unless he's in High Republic. I don't know. I don't read those.
I don't know. I don't know. I hadn't heard from anybody in High Republic.
This would be the first time because this is 100 years before Phantom Menace. So this would be the first
but I mean, like, couldn't they have given us someone whose name we had heard? It had been alluded to before. Or... No, random dude.
So they go back to Brendok, and meanwhile on Khmer, we see the big reveal, which is Darth Plagueis watching Khmer and Osha from the cave. Now, I know why he's there, and there's a few reasons why he's there, but from a storytelling perspective, he doesn't really get to do anything. He's there, one, to confirm for us that Khmer is indeed a Sith.
Yes.
And two, to do something which I am never going to forgive this series for, which I'll get to in a minute. So, Osha and Khmer go back to Brendok, where they have a showdown with Saul, and May gets Saul to admit to her that he's the one who killed their mother. Now, it wasn't murder. He panicked because she was rebelling or something, and he freaked out. But May gets him to say this while Osha... Right, and May gets him to say this while Osha is standing behind him. So she gets this revelation. She gets his lightsaber from him. And while it's really cool to see the actual bleeding of the Kyber crystal to turn red, she didn't really seem very angry about it. It's like she's standing there.
Well, I just chalked that up to bad acting.
Exactly, bad acting.
Yeah.
So it turns red. She kills Saul. She doesn't even ask him why he did this. She just Saul gives kind of this half-assed explanation that, that power is dangerous. It's like, okay, so did she say she was going to do something evil with it? No. So he died, which... admit I was kind of surprised by. I figured Saul would get something. I guess not. And then that's when Khmer and Osha and May decide to take off together. Despite the fact that Osha and May very much love each other, you would think that the three of them would just leave, because the fact that the Jedi at the temple need Basil to find a tree that's like 100 yards away tells me that they would never find May if Khmer and Osha just dropped her off at some other planet. They would never find her. Because again, Yoda doesn't even know what's going on yet. And despite that Osha is a former Jedi, they know her. They should be able to sense the turmoil within her when she killed Saul. They're clueless. So the argument that, somebody had to sacrifice themselves to get away. No, that doesn't track. It's like this. We already established in the 3rd episode that tree is within like shouting distance of the temple. So why do you need Basil to go there if they're supposedly setting up? It's like, it's just bad. And so when Khmer says, if they found you, they can find you again. It's like, no, they didn't. They only found you because Saul turned on the transponder. If he hadn't done that, they wouldn't have been able to find him again. So, and the girls love each other. So why are you consenting to having your memory wiped? It's like, why not give it a fighting chance and leave? It's like that. It's bad writing. And they leave to go back to, back to the planet. Vanessa decides to cover the whole thing up and blame Saul, which is really sad. Yoda apparently co-signs the conspiracy. And the reason Yoda's there is apparently this is how Yoda finds out about the rule of 2, which is why Plagueis is there, to confirm for us that, yes, he's a Sith. Vanessa's going to fill him in. We know that Khmer was her apprentice. We have no idea what happened there, only that Vanessa wants to cover it up. And again, you've had 8 episodes to tell us something about your antagonist, and we still know nothing about him or why. And to Dave's point, we still don't know how he knows Saul. And the fact that they don't know if they're getting a second season, and they didn't feel the need to fill in what is arguably the most crucial piece of information for the whole setup of the series, is just, again, bad writing. It doesn't track. But the thing I will find unforgivable is that the implication of this series is that this is where Darth Plagueis gets the idea to mess with midichlorians to create life it is the spark which starts the entire Skywalker saga. Now, let me remind you.
I don't believe it. No.
Project
it's not true. It's impossible. No.
Project Necromancer in the Mandoverse is insanely difficult. The best it could accomplish was a mangled Snoke avatar. And when they did resurrect Palpatine, he's hooked up to all these tubes. He has no autonomy. It takes a freaking Force dyad for him to have complete autonomy over himself. And like they say, the dark side is a path to many things that some consider to be unnatural. But these witches who are not as dark as the Night Sisters, they're not tapped into that. Lickety split. They've created a complete person in the Force by themselves with its own autonomy, with its own powers, and even split it in half to create 2 people. No problem whatsoever. But the Dark Lord of the Sith, and later on, all of the Sith at Exegol cannot do this worth for shit with all their powers combined.
So here's my other more questions, which is why this leaves us with more questions, was Plagueis there because Plagueis was somehow a part of that? Was he a part of May and Osha's creation as well? I know, but but
they did mention at one point that the planet might itself be a virgin, because they said when they had been there before, everything is dead and now it's alive. It's like, well,
right, because everything was wiped out on that as a part of the hyperspace disaster. That was one of the planets in the wake of the fallout of that.
Right. So obviously, Plagueis is going to ask Khmer and Osha about everything, which means if the planet has the powers, not so much the witches, then why don't you just go there to create your life and achieve death? Why are you doing so? It's like, if it's the planet and it's that easy, it's like, do it there. It's like, you clearly have opened pathways to unnatural abilities. Your apprentice and his apprentice after him are going to be doing the same thing. But no, you guys with all your might, with, again, what a Sith actually is and the type of dark side stuff they do. Him even trying to mess with the Force causes the Force to retaliate by creating Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, to put a stop to this. But in this series, which takes place 91 years before Anakin is born, you have all 3 things happen. You have the witches mess with the Force to create life. You have the Sith get involved. And you have the Jedi's incompetence to exacerbate the problem. Why didn't the Force do something about it right then when it had the chance to stop it, rather than waiting 91 more years to create the chosen one? No logic. Wow. And again, Yoda, even if they didn't put Yoda in the series, it still begs the question. He should be able to sense what's going on. These are his Jedi. Again, it doesn't. None of this tracks, and the acting is bad, and the writing is bad.
I got a lot of the.
It's because the writing is bad fundamentally.
Well, here's the thing too. I was on the Zoom, the support group show last night, and I was looking at a question that one of the members had asked was like, I don't know who's the writer of this or the director of that is. So I go to look up that question for him. Every freaking episode is written by someone else, is a different person. Every freaking episode is directed by someone else. this is why we don't have continuity. Yes, Leslie Headland is listed as created by the whole thing, and she wrote, I think, the first 2 episodes and directed the first 2 episodes. Oh, guess what? Those were the ones that actually, had continuity. Maybe we have the same person write all the things. And maybe even, okay, I don't do like the direction of the action. I want somebody else. But that's wrong, because we proved that she at least had somebody with a cool stunt coordinator, because she directed the episode with Fight with Carrie Ann Moss.
Yep.
But why do we have, in an 8-episode show, we have 20 some odd writers, and we have, like, I think 5 different directors?
Right, like even in Andor, when they had different directors, they would have each. You know how Andor was sort of broken into multiple. Like there'd be a few episodes
The
telling one
arcs.
story in this. They would have the same director do the whole story, and they'd have consistency with the writers, so that way there was a proper carryover. And clearly, those different writers on that show were talking to each other to ensure that consistency.
Well, and that happened in the early seasons of The Mandalorian.
I was going to say, yeah.
They had, it's high action one. We've got Robert Rodriguez is directing this one. We've got one that's kind of focusing on Mando's humanity and this problem. Oh, Bryce Dallas Howard. And it worked.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're trying to get from A to B, and you can't chop up A to B. Oh, no, we're going to A.2, A.3, and then we're going to switch and have somebody else do. No. One person from A to B, tell that, then let's move on.
Yeah. And like you said, with the same problem with your Descendants show, consistency there. Another one we saw happen earlier this year was Echo, where we know there was a whole episode that, for reasons unknown, got removed from, like, at the last second, they cut it out. And so when you get between, like, the second episode starts, and you could tell based on the way certain characters are interacting for the first time that they skipped over an entire episode. And that's why they dumped it all at once. Like, all the other Disney Plus shows for the flagship live action shows are weekly episode drops. They dumped the whole series at once, and it did not make sense. Because, again, you look at the same problem. All these different writers, all these different directors, it falls in on itself, and they do a choppy last minute edits, and it's like, this is crap, let's just dump it on the service. It's like, no. If it's bad, I'm sorry, you need to do what David Zaslav did with Batgirl. You kill that shit.
Yeah.
Because it hurts the frame. And enough people who are not mouth breathers, but like intelligent creators went to the Batgirl screening, and they said, yes, that would have hurt the franchise because it was a very cheap, like CW type production in terms of production values and writing. And even though there were good things in it, they said Brendan Fraser was very good as Firefly, but the quality was not there, and it still needed $30 million to finish post-production because it was supposed to be a streaming release anyway for their $70 million client. But they stepped in and they said, no, it's better taking a tax write-off than to hurt the franchise by putting something out that is bad. But what did Disney do with Echo? Well, we need to satisfy the content. So even though this is bad to the point that we're doing these severe last-minute edits, let's just, rather than delay it and save it to try and save it, let's just dump it all at once. It's like, no. If it hurts the franchise, don't release it. And that's what Acolyte does.
And little things with parts of Acolyte where they're like, oh, well, there's this other badass Wookiee fight that you saw between the Stranger and Kelnaka, but it had to be cut for budget reasons. I'm like, this is freaking Star Wars. Go back to them and say, to make this better and be badass, I need another $20 million. And they write you a check.
That's another thing. They spent $186 million on this show. I have no idea where the budget went. Clearly, it wasn't in the VFX. The lightsabers in the last episode looked even pretty bad.
The lightsabers in all of the episodes were like worse than the lightsaber that I would carry.
Yeah. Oh, did he freeze for you too?
Yeah, I think we lost.
We might have lost Dave, but okay, so the VFX are bad.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just me, but it almost looks like they shot it on video. It doesn't have that filmic quality to the image like the way that Andor does. Or it just looks really cheap. kind of like Kenobi, where a lot of the fight between Vader looked like it was shot on a soundstage, almost like you could see, and that's kind of what the whole episode on Kofar kind of looked like. Other than a few wide shots at the beginning, it's like this looks like they shot it like on doing the day for night thing on a stage. It doesn't look real.
Well, and like little things of your Yord is running through the jungle with his glow stick, that he uses it like flashlight all the time, and just holds it like right in front of his face, where it's like, that is going to burn your nose off.
Not a torch.
B,
it is not a torch.
If you're using it as a torch, maybe you put it up here so it's not blinding you. And the fact that he's running by plants and brushing them out of the way with it, and it's not cutting them. And they barely, in the big fight scene, they barely, like, you could see when the stranger, Khmer, whatever we're calling him, I'm calling him Darth Teeth, but is when they're fighting on the little bridge, when the sabers are hitting the top of the roof of it, just a little spark. Just a little spark. They finally, when they have to really mean it, when it cuts down the side, it's like, yeah, you knew you were going to do that. But if you knew it was going to do all this other stuff too, maybe we should have put a little bit in the budget for the effect of that. Little things hurt. And don't get me wrong. I know people are sitting here watching going, oh my God, there are more people that just hate. I didn't hate this show. There were enjoyable parts. I wanted answers to a lot of the questions. I liked the fight scene. I was disappointed, but okay with the fact that they killed Carrie-Anne Moss. If they had answered some of the questions as to why May could have done that and why she was attempting to do that, or maybe they had redone the fight a little bit to where Carrie had to put a little bit more effort into saving the innocent bystander, and that's why. I liked the concept, but it should have been a little bit more strenuous and spelled out. And
she was also the smartest of that group of Jedi. She was really intelligent, and they showed that in the flashback, and very disciplined. And yet she's the one who gets wasted, which I guess that makes sense why all the other idiots do what they do, because they're not as smart as she was. But it's like
they needed her leadership.
they needed her leadership. We're then told that the Venestra character apparently isn't even remotely consistent with the High Republic, which is on par for what Dave Filoni did with Sabine in the Ahsoka show. So again, this further point that what does the story group do? I have no idea. They do nothing apparently.
Well, here's the wacky is I know people, and I'm not naming names yet, that are super High Republic fans who liked this change in Vernestra. And I was sitting there going like, what? Because I thought they were going to lose their shit that they turned her evil, essentially, that she's, part of the Jedi bureaucracy. That's the problem. And the fact that they've turned that they're alluding to now that Yoda is part of the problem and the corruption in the Jedi. It's like, leave the little green dude alone. You can mess up all your little made up High Republic-y people and whatever.
Yeah, just don't touch Yoda. Exactly.
No. I will get with you. I will go down the rabbit hole with you if you answer my questions and explain to me why it is that you want the Jedi to be, from this point of view, evil. If you are saying this is the bureaucracy and this is government and it's an allegory to the evil and the deception in modern government, I'm there with you people. I was like, yes, make it a comment on American politics. Go.
No, because they have to make it consistent with what we saw in the prequels from the Jedi bureaucracy.
Yeah.
You can't, you got to stay consistent. And the moment you make something too contemporary, it ages overnight and it's not good anymore. It's like you need to find a way, like George Lucas famously said that, the original trilogy, the rebels are like the Vietnamese and the Empire's America, and the Emperor's Richard Nixon. Really, George? But it's presented in such a universally accessible way that even a Cambodian kid could watch Star Wars and perceive the Empire as the Khmer Rouge, the Emperor as Pol Pot, and the rebels as the rebels, the freedom fighters against the Khmer Rouge, and still love it. It's like it's not on the nose enough. But these series, they're pushing things.
You can't go back and make us feel sympathy for the Empire when they were made to be literal space Nazis, right down to the jodhpurs and the goose stepping boots. You cannot make us feel sympathy for Nazis.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is, because it's a Sith Empire, and all this time it's like, again, we're told that this is supposed to be a dark side oriented show. And it's like, okay, so the whole thesis of this show is this is where Darth Plagueis gets the idea and finds out how he could start manipulating midichlorians to create life, thus sparking the entire Skywalker saga. Well, then why don't you tell that story from his perspective? It's like, the fans will love it. It's like Legends material. That is the best Legends book that everybody loves. Plagueis. Do it. Just do that. Like, why are we doing
I wonder if that's season 2, if that's the game for it, because Headland has said,
oh gosh, she can't touch Star Wars with a 50,000-foot pole ever again. Just terrible.
The way she likes to tell things is that this was contained, and there's no way hell that this was self-contained.
No.
Because there's still so many questions that we don't know.
Everywhere.
But that a season 2 would be another story.
This has got more holes in it than an entire Tommy Gun magazine would have when it's firing at the wall. I'm sorry.
But I mean, maybe somebody in Acolyte season 2 tell us Plagueis. Tell us how Plagueis selects Palpatine and what happens from when Palpatine is the Acolyte, learning from.
And to think that Kennedy rejected Rogue One movie, but greenlit this.
But that might be back.
Yeah.
By the way,
is it? Do we really believe that, or is that like she might be legally contractually obligated to send them a script? But it's like, you had a release date for that movie. You very proudly announced it, shot a whole video. We had to scrap it because Wonder Woman 84 was bad. It's like, so what? She's got a good resume.
Yeah.
But it's like, Russian Doll was good. So good to hire Headland. I'm still baffled as to why this show is as bad as it is compared to Russian Doll. Because Headland did a great job on Russian Doll. But
here's my thing. I'm not blaming Headland. I think some of the best episodes were written and directed by her.
But she's still in charge of running the show.
But
she's not supervising.
How much was she, and how much was corporate interference?
Yeah, I'm with that because if you look at Obi-Wan, the Obi-Wan show was meant to be Deborah Chow as showrunner, but then when it actually materialized, there were a lot more people involved in the exec producing and overall running of the show. And I feel like this is the classic feeling of too many cooks in the kitchen, kind of in that how many mistakes are made and how many times the show feels like it's tripping over itself and falling flat. Like every 5 minutes, something ridiculous happens that contradicts or doesn't match.
The first 15 are producers and executive producers before you get to the cast. And it's just like, why are there that many?
Well, there were a lot of problems even in the first 2 episodes that she wrote on this show.
Oh, I didn't say there weren't problems, but I said some of the better parts of it were that. So it's I can't just say that it's got to be her because the episodes she wrote and directed are
we lost Dave again.
Crap, and comparatively, but yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna give it an F, and that's my thoughts. I don't want to see a season 2. It's like it's just gonna get worse. Disney's gonna keep scrambling and try and figure out why they're losing subscribers. Yeah, and I'm not gonna pick this one up on physical media. It's like, nope, I'm not putting this in my Star Wars completist set. I'm not gonna put Kenobi in there either because that was bad too. Because again, remember, Kenobi that show even ends not telling us what happened to Reva. Yeah. It's like. And they have no plans, apparently. Like, well, what was that about? And it's like, granted, that's not consistent either. Because when Obi-Wan found out that Anakin murdered children, he didn't want to hear anything about it. He's just like, no, you're done. With his hands on his hips, and he's like, nope, you're done. Yeah. But when Reva tries to torture a 6-year-old girl, when she tries to murder a 6-year-old boy, when she murders the people in the marketplace to bring, Obi-Wan's going to provide a shoulder to cry on. It's okay. I'm like, the writing and the lack of consistency. It's like, where is the story group? I'm looking for the plot. I'm looking for I don't see it anywhere.
Yeah, see, I respect, and I think he's gone back on it now, but you see from Mark Hamill, he's like, I'm going to go, you're the director. I'm going to do what you said do, and I'm going to portray Luke in this way, but this is not my Luke. This is not how Luke would act. And he spoke up and he said that, and he was shouted down and he lost. But I mean, the same sort of thing should be given for like Ewan. Ewan knows Obi-Wan's character at this point. He's lived in that space for long enough. And should you say something about that? Maybe so. Maybe did. Maybe didn't. Maybe he hasn't. Maybe he's not willing to make public his feelings on the subject the same way. I mean, he has made public that he really loved working with Hayden again, and they were having a big old time, and it was just that sort of thing. But, you know, I didn't hate this series. I liked parts of it. I liked it asked enough questions to make me want the answers to in the short term, but now that it's over, I don't want to see these characters and this sort of thing. I don't want to see it again. If you get Acolyte a season 2, do what you do. Give me another writer, give me another director, give me another situation with an Acolyte, and you don't need to mention these people again. You don't need to go back to that place, with the potential exception of, since you didn't do it, if you're alluding to Plagueis, fine, give me a story about Plagueis. It doesn't have to tie into why he was in the cave. Don't want to know. Don't care. Doesn't have to tie into May, Osha, the stranger, the whole deal. You want to give me a story about Plagueis and his Acolyte? Go. But other than that, I will rewatch this. Not necessarily anytime soon, but I will rewatch it and I will check out some of the cool fight scenes again, some of what's happened. I'm sure at some point I will see it again, because I'm not purposely not, but when I go to seek out Star Wars content and I want to watch something, I'm really not rewatching a lot of the Disney Plus stuff. As much as I enjoy Ewan McGregor and I enjoy the character of Obi-Wan, I will go watch. I'll go rewatch The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith before I will go sit down and watch the Obi-Wan show. You know, I'm gonna, if I want to see stuff that happens with the Sith, I'm gonna go watch Revenge of the Sith. I'm not gonna watch it. I'm gonna go watch Clone Wars or Rebels, or I have yet to find myself a time when I've gone to seek out this content again. Yet.
Yeah, and like Gio said, it's like, who's the content being made for? It's like, it's not fun and upbeat like kids will like for Star Wars. It's not intelligent or deep or good writing like you have for Andor explained adults. So who exactly was this show written for? It's like, I don't really know. And it's like, I remember how excited people were when they said this show was going to be like dark side Sith oriented, and people got excited, but that's clearly not what happened.
And there was also the idea that it would be a martial arts kind of story, but that wasn't remotely like A, B, or C among the top priorities.
But of course, Lucasfilm isn't going to take any lessons from it, because they just say, oh, it's just the bigots who are hating the show. It's like, no, you genuinely have bad content. Like, the reason Disney Plus is now putting, or that Disney is now putting their Disney Plus flagship shows on physical media, is because people are canceling their subscriptions in droves because the content isn't good. And kids nowadays, I just read a big article about this actually just yesterday, that Disney is having a hard time maintaining subscribers amongst children, because they thought that children would be great because they'll watch Disney content and be a great babysitter. Well, it turns out the leading children's programming is actually YouTube, because it channels into kids' shorter attention spans. And Disney tested a few like YouTube series for kids, which actually worked pretty well. But they're not getting them to subscribe for Disney. They say only 7.6% of their subscriptions are being watched by children through their kids app. Like, the kids are not watching Disney Plus. and the adults aren't watching it because the content that's supposedly the flagship shows aren't good enough.
Well, I think that's there's probably some wiggle room in that content because I think they're not accounting for the fact that parents are too lazy to actually put their kids on the kids app section of it, and that they're watching kid content on the adult app. That's happening, and that's not being accounted for because parents are too lazy or not technologically savvy enough to go ahead and it's like, oh, this is my kids channel, so they can click their. No, is they're going on their adult thing and they're going Bluey and play, and you know, and don't no hate mail for me because the Bluey, we love the Bluey. Okay, that's I find zero wrong with Bluey. Nothing is let the people that write Bluey write the Acolyte. Go.
It's like, look at House of the Dragon right now. That show cost $120 million, and you see every penny on the screen.
I was going to say, if there's one thing that you can always hold up as a comparison, as a prequel show that had a franchise that was completely nerfed, that loads of people on a dime hated after season 7 and then season 8, and you'd think the stock of Game of Thrones was dead, and then House of the Dragon is the answer, right? And so, however bad a show Star Wars is, like we've had that with the Book of Boba Fett, or we've had that with Obi-Wan. I'm still waiting for our House of Dragon moment, but it's not coming. It's not remotely there. And to see the budget of House of the Dragon be comparable to the Acolyte is insane, given the.
I mean, is that in salaries? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, the chasm in quality.
I will be interested to see what happens with what's next. Is I am looking forward to their concept of the Skeleton Crew and where it goes and what they do. Like I said, the treatise, but then again, the 1 page paragraph liner about what this show was didn't seem to be what we got. But if we get hopefully what they've described for Skeleton Crew, I may not love it because it's not supposed to be written for me. Is the Skeleton Crew is going to be a kid show. It's like, I appreciate Young Jedi Adventures. Do I watch it religiously? No, because I'm not the intended audience. But I'm hopeful for Skeleton Crew, and I would like to see where Mandalorian and Grogu goes, and I really want to see some of that other content that we've been told about and we promised. Is the Rogue Squadron? Yeah. Is Dawn of the Jedi? Sounds good. The Filoni movie, which allegedly may be like Avengers Assemble for the Mandoverse. Okay.
And they're losing characters. I mean,
I don't know that I love the concept of calling it Heir to the Empire and even giving it the connection to the Zahn book when you're probably not going to give me the Zahn book. So, but I want to see it. I'm looking forward to it. The long and short of what I think this show was whatever. There are so many things that we would have liked explained better. I think it would have benefited from either being shorter, is make that more concise, cut out a bunch of the this and the that, and we went this sideway, cut out the second flashback or whatever, to make it shorter, or we needed like 3 less episodes or 4 more, something like that. I don't know.
Needed top-down rewrite. Better dialogue. The dialogue was awful.
I want bad dialogue. I'm going to give that away because of what I've said this before, is what all the actors in the original trilogy said about George's dialogue is you might write this stuff down, but you can't say it.
But we're not in that era anymore, so they don't have to be that bad. It's like
I know, but
there's better writers out there, and it's like I don't.
Giving that,
and I'm genuinely curious to see the budget sheet for this. I don't know where the money went. I mean, look at like Andor. You could see the money on screen in Andor.
Yeah,
it's like that was like looked really well done, but I don't see where they spent the money here. And again, when you had all the veterans of British television make Andor, it worked because it seems they left them alone, and they prioritize quality over quantity, which is ironic considering that Andor's the longest show yet at 12 episodes.
Yeah.
And 12, like each episodes are like 45 minutes to an hour. So you're getting your bang for your buck there. Whereas this, it's like we have to keep cannibalizing episodes after 27 minutes or so with half scene. It's like, this is why people are leaving your service. This is why they're not watching.
Well, and a lot of stuff, some of the weirdness of this is not making weird connections to the previous media, movies, TV, like, quoting
Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's quoting different parts, but what?
Into your anger, except she's not angry.
She cannot express that emotion. We've had 7 episodes to see.
That's the thing. They're not prioritizing great actors either. I mean, I think Saul was probably, Lee Jung-hae was probably the best actor of the newcomers, along with Carrie-Anne Moss. But the rest of them,
I didn't mind the actress who played Jackie because she was kind of supposed to be the Padawan and the learner. Yeah, she was a little bit too badass for the naivete that she was kind of giving
how
off.
Innocent she was.
Mm-hmm. But Carrie-Anne Moss was playing Trinity again. Okay, fine, on board for that. But yeah.
That's another thing. I cannot believe we didn't get anything close to an explanation of how Master Endara took out the entire coven of witches in the second flashback when she interrupted their spell.
There's another one of those questions. Did she? I don't know. I think
where did they go?
Jonesed it. I think this was a suicide cult from the beginning. I think that's what that second flashback episode kind of in like the minutia alluded to, is we must make sacrifice for the children for this to go forward. I don't think she did. I think that was the plan.
But that's the question. When they say with this to go forward, what is this? Like, what did they want them to exactly?
What was their motivation?
There's nothing here. It's like you already have a coven of Force witches with Dathomir. And with the Ahsoka show, they implied that they originated from Peridia, where it seems Abeloth is. So that tells us where they're drawing their power. Okay, that makes sense. Who are these witches, and why are they able to create life lickety-split, whereas the Dark Lord of the frickin' Sith can't do that, even with all their resources at their disposal in the sequel trilogy era? I don't.
Again, I'm waiting.
Bad writing.
Maybe this is his little harem, his little coven on the side. Plagueis visits every 10, 12 years.
The level of thing is that this was with the help of Plagueis. It's not that Plagueis learned from them.
When the list of questions is bigger than the list of longer than the list of answers, then you haven't told the complete story.
Yeah, definitely.
That right there.
That's the Acolyte, everybody. Still not sure the Acolyte of what. I'm not really sure.
I'm still not sure. I really think you just summed it up the best that you could possibly sum it up right there. Is the list of questions given to us by the Acolyte is way longer and greater than the answers and what was presented to us. It has us asking a lot about what just happened. But it is so. Anyway, I hope you are enjoying this. I think as you watch this show, we are getting ready to begin in person physically the virtual Cantina Family Vacation. This will be airing the Sunday right before the Monday when that happens, when a large number of us are going to be meeting up in Hollywood, and we've got 3 big events with characters from the Filoniverse, characters from the prequels, characters from the original trilogy, and what I am so much hyped about is a lot of the people who created that. And even in the Mandoverse stuff, a lot of the people that we have may be actors in the show, but they're also creators behind it, like Chris Bartlett, who's created in all of these different droid characters. And we've got.
So you're telling us, in other words, that they could tell us what's going on over what's causing all this mayhem.
Shh. No, they would not ever violate their NDAs. Wink, wink. But no, they're really good about that, and they will share many stories about what's going on without violating that, and tell us the kind of things that you've seen on the Virtual Cantina watch-alongs. If you watch back on this channel, Chris has great stories. Kevin Thompson has great stories. So many. Craig Miller had some great stories that he was telling, and many more. If you want to know everybody that's there, go watch some of our other shows. Watch the Celebrating Autographs. Celebrating Autographs is going to be on again. Actually, I think it's the Monday before you see this show, so you won't know that then. But go back and watch some of the other Celebrating Autographs that are archived on our YouTube channel. And it will let you know about all of those events and all of the people that you can come out and see if you happen to be in Southern or Northern California. You don't have to be a part of this trip. But let us take a minute and, of course, thank one of the title sponsors for the trip and for the Boonta Eves, which is Hyperspace Props. They make a ton of like physical metal credits and all sorts of other cosplay accessories. And you can use the code Boonta for 10% off your purchase. And we have all of our other sponsors as well. XLA Experience Level Entertainment, our other title sponsors, as well as all the others that you see here. Thank them for sponsoring the Boontas and the family vacation. And we are looking forward to having that and sharing some of those experiences with a lot of you out there. And
all right, so thanks everybody for joining this week. I'm gonna go charter I'm gonna get a shark charter with Quint because I feel I need that right now. Boat might sink, but that's okay.
That's right there is proof that you can make a good movie on little or no budget, and when everything on the planet goes wrong and against you,
and it still works.
I know.
Yeah. I can't remember. Did Kennedy produce that yet, or was she with Spielberg at the time?
I don't know the answer to that one either. We would have to look.
I don't think she was, but maybe.
I don't think she. I think
yeah,
it's a little later.
All right, so we're here. We're back after 2 months. So hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unifying Force. I certainly glad this is behind us now, so I'll never have to watch it again.
What was your phrase? Ripping the Band-Aid off immediately?
Yeah, just rip the Band-Aid off and be done with it. It's done.
Well, have fun as you watch this on tape. Please feel free to give us your comments, your opinions, and we will be happy to address those in a future episode, because these here are our opinions, what we think, and yours are just as valid, and we will be happy to put yours on the air and let others know about how you feel about this series. So until then, may the Force be with you.
The Force be with you.
Always.